This is the W5FC repeater, PL110.9. Meeting on the air first and third Sunday, 7 p.m., W5FC.
Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Does anyone need to use their repeater before we begin the 9 p.m. Skynet? This is Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima. My name is Brenda, and I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time using the # break and your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic? This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control, that would be me, and stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on 146.88 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. Go to www.wfc.org right now for a complete list. Remember to tell others about this popular net. All amateur radio operators are welcome. You need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. This net is 90 minutes long and structured in several parts. General announcements, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, National Space Society events, discussion topic of the evening, What's Up, space exploration and space history, Constellation of the week, space launches this week, recent astronomical discoveries, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days, astronomical Q&A, and 73 round. All amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in. So we're going to start with low power in short time. If you will please give us your call sign phonetically, your name and your location. Please come now.
Five, X-ray 8, Kilo Echo 5. Jimmy, Frank, Mike, Echo, out here, Gerald,
This is Whiskey 5 Golf Uniform Sierra Gus, far northeast Dallas, 3-1, low power.
That first station, you were pretty scratchy, and all I got was KE5. Could you come with the rest of the information, please?
Lima, X-ray Yankee, K5 LXY, over in Carroll, Texas.
missed your name. Could I get that?
Jamaica, India, Mike, Mike, India, Echo.
Okay, KE5 LXY. Still missed your name, but I don't think, maybe we'll come back to it. And we have W5 GUS, Gus. Okay, now regular check-in.
Kilo 5, Juliet, Delta Whiskey, John in Capsule.
Kilo Echo 5, India, Charlie, X-Ray, Tom, Louisville.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Juliet Hotel Alpha, Chaz, Mesquite.
Alpha Foxtrot 5, Tango X-Ray, BJ in Crandall.
Uniform, Kilo Uniform, David, Mesquite.
This is Alpha Alpha 5, Alpha Hotel, Robert Richardson. November 5, Bravo, Bravo, Bill and Irving.
Kilo 5, Kilo Tango X-Ray, Kelly in Quinlan.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Zulu, Bravo, Lima, Bill, Power Stretch. In Carrollton.
This is
Alpha Charlie 9, Kilo Victor, Romeo and Grapevine, Crossband.
Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey, J, no weather.
Okay, let's stop there. I'll need a couple of fills. We have some doubles. K5 JDW, John. KE5 ICX, Tom. LF5 THA, JHA. I don't write well. KF5 JHA, Chaz. AF5 TX, BJ. And then, David, I missed your prefix. I got uniform, Kilo Uniform. Can you come back with the rest of it?
Yeah, that's KG5, UKU.
Okay, KG5 UKU. Thank you, David. Then we have AA5AH Robert, N5BB Bill, K5 KTX Kelly, KF5ZBL Bill. And then we have somebody in Carrollton that I didn't get anything. So would you please give me your call and name?
Yes, this is Kilo 5, Whiskey, Victor and Lima, James.
Okay, I got that is Kilo 5, Whiskey, Victor, Lima, James. AC9KV, Romy, and KG5Z, Bravo, Zulu, Bravo, Whiskey, J. Do we have anybody from Echo Lane? Please come down.
This is Whiskey 0, Mike Bravo Charlie, Shane.
Kilo Golf 5, Zulu Mike Golf, Joe in Arlington.
Okay, we've got WZ0M, Mike Bravo Charlie, Shane, and Bethany. Hi, Bethany. And KG, Zulu Mike Golf, Joe. Okay, anybody else?
This is Kilo Golf 5, Alpha Papa Lima, Patrick in Dallas.
Kilo Echo 5, November
Okay, Kilo Golf 5, APL, Patrick. And next check-in, I just missed everything. Could you come back very slowly, please?
Kilo Echo 5, November Victor Romeo, Kenny.
I got your call is Kilo Echo 5, November Victor Romeo. Could we try again on your name, please?
Name, Kenny. Kilo Echo November.
Okay, our copy that is Kenny. Is that correct?
QSL.
All right, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Let's see, what's next? All right, do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? These can be ham, astronomical, space, or general interest to licensed hams. Please come now. All right, Amsat Announcements. Does anybody have any information? If not, I can read this. Okay, Amsat, that's Radio Amateur Satellite Group, has 2 nets available to Dallas residents. On Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Central Time, you'll need Echolink installed and be registered. You can find the net under Groups and Amsat. Also, a live audio link is available on their website, which is amsatnet.com. This net originates in Houston. Dallas Amsat Net East, Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, is every Tuesday at 8 p.m. on this repeater, 146.88 megahertz, PL 110.9 megahertz. Tuesdays, Tom N5HYP is net control. All are welcome to check in. First Tuesday of the month is DARC Club Night, so no Amsat night, Amsat East that night. Dallas Amsat Net, Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, is every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater, 147.14 megahertz, PL 110.9 megahertz, positive offset. Tonight's Afterglow info. Ted Stryker regretted his days in the Royal Canadian Air Force and the loss of his squadron to a flying moose rebellion gone incredibly bad. He boarded the airplane and set towards the back. Other Canadians were on board, including a motorcycle gang from Quebec who switched and had checked their GIMA motorcycles at the curb. The aircraft reached cruising altitude and the flight attendants took meal orders. Fish and meat were the choices. Many people chose fish because it looked like fish. Others tried the meat, which of course French Canadians balked at since it was mysterious. Interestingly, the doctor had lasagna. If this sounds familiar to you, you'd be right. 0 hour is almost word for word the script used in Airplane. Join us for this most unusual adventure, 0 hour, from 1957 at 10:30 p.m. You can keep up with all the ARC events, nets, and activities by going to the club website, w5fc.org. Okay, do we have any additional check-ins?
Kilo 5, Alpha November Papa, Allen in Dallas.
This is Kilo India 5 Golf Romeo Hotel, Melissa in Dallas.
Okay, we've got K5ANP Allen and KI5GRH Melissa. Welcome to the net, everybody. Okay, next up, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope. KF5JHA, do you have any information on this?
Thank you, Brenda. Yes, the next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting will be on October 23rd. That's about 6 days from now at 7:30 p.m. with a guest speaker, David Eicher. David Eicher is an American editor, writer, popularizer of astronomy in space. He has been the editor-in-chief of Astronomy magazine since 2002. He is author, co-author, and editor of 23 different books on science and American history, and is known for having founded a magazine on astronomical observing called Deep Sky Monthly when he was 15 years old. Wow. David's most recent astronomy book is Galaxies Inside the Universe's Star Cities. Task Club members will receive an email probably in the next few days to the meeting, because it'll be a Zoom meeting. Let's see now. And hopefully we might return to face-to-face meetings sometime in the future. And maybe we'll be able to have public observing stations after all this shelter-in-place is over. Although, I guess COVID cases are going up in our county right now. If you want to check out more information about the Texas Astronomical Society, go to texasastro.org for details. And that's all I've got, Brenda. Back to you. KF5JHA.
Thank you. This is WB5OZL. Next up, the National Space Society events and activities. N5BB, can you give us something about that?
Yes, Brenda, although there's not much to report this month, this is N5BB. I am the membership director of the North Texas Chapter, National Space Society. We normally meet on the second Sunday afternoon every month, but we can't do in-person meetings, so we have been doing WebEx meetings. The last meeting we had last Sunday, unfortunately, the NASA presenter was unable to be there. It turns out she took a vacation at the last minute. So we had to fill in with another presentation by one of our members, our president, local chapter president, on missions to the Moon and Mars. Our next meeting will be the second Tuesday of November, the second Sunday of November, November the 8th at 4 p.m. via WebEx. There is a speaker lined up, although I've forgotten what subject is. Our December meeting will be the second Sunday of December, December the 10th, 4 p.m., where we have the NASA speaker, Amy Ross. The daughter of Jerry Ross is scheduled to, she rescheduled to that meeting. Unfortunately, since we have no local event, due to the pandemic, there's not a lot else going on. There's a few National Space Society webinars for members, and there's newsletters going out, but there's no other specific events going on because of the pandemic. That's all. If anybody would like to learn more about National Space Society, they can send me an email, space@byrom.net. That's SPACE at BYROM.net, or N5BB@ARRL.net. Thank you, N5BB.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, we're going to go into our presentation. This is about Chuck Yeager breaking the sound barrier and how it related to the space program, how it moved the space program along. So, this is from space.com. A booming thunder roared across the clear skies of the Mojave Desert on October 14th, 1947. And if you're paying attention, the anniversary is this week, 3 days ago. As U.S. Air Force Captain Chuck Yeager nudged an experimental rocket-powered plane faster than the speed of sound. Though only a handful of people realized it at the time, an aviation record had been set. In 1935, a simplified explanation of the challenges of supersonic flight led to the creation of the term sound barrier, which seemed to imply a physical wall that could not be overcome. Bullets and cannonballs had exceeded the speed of sound for hundreds of years, but the question loomed as to whether or not a plane or a man could withstand the pressures that accompanied it. The U.S. Air Force set out to answer this looming question. 4 rocket engines propelled the X-1, and it was built to absorb 18 times the force of gravity. Unlike most planes, it didn't take off from the ground, but was instead dropped from the belly of a B-29 Superfortress, rapidly accelerating in the air on only a few minutes worth of fuel before gliding back to the dry lakes below. The plane, nicknamed the Glamorous Glennis for Yeager's wife, slowly approached the sound barrier over the course of 9 flights. Muroc Air Force Base, now known as Edwards Air Force Base, in the empty Southern California desert proved the ideal spot for testing a variety of experimental vehicles, including the X-1. The man who would become the most famous test pilot in American history was born in West Virginia on February 13, 1923. He's still alive. He's 97. Charles Elwood Chuck Yeager enlisted as a private in the U.S. Army Air Corps at the age of 18 and served in World War II, where he flew 64 combat missions. Like many of his generation, Yeager enrolled in the military in 1941. And in 2017 interview with Forbes, Yeager said he was a gifted mechanic who had never seen an airplane before he turned 18. But I noticed that as a mechanic, my hands were always greasy while the pilots were clean, and they had good-looking girls on their arms. Flying looked pretty good to me, he told Forbes. The military required a college education for its pilots, but when they didn't get enough applicants for the cadet flyer program in 1942, they dropped their requirements to a high school diploma. With my visual acuity and understanding of mechanics, I was really a hell of a lot better than the cadets. From there on, I was in the right place at the right time, he told Forbes. And he was modest. In 1945, he was assigned as a maintenance officer to the Flight Test Division at Wright Field, Ohio, flight testing the planes. Colonel Albert Boyd, in charge of the test program for the Air Force, invited him to become a test pilot, and Yeager accepted transferring to Muroc to enroll in the Flight Performance School. It was there that Yeager was selected to be the first person to attempt to exceed the speed of sound. Yeager's first test launch of the glamorous Glennis took place on August 29, 1947, with subsequent attempts increasing speed by 0.02 of a Mach number. Mach is a unit of measuring the speed of sound in a given medium. A plane traveling at 0.2 Mach moves at only 0.2 of the speed of sound, while Mach 1 is equal to it. The speed of sound is 758 miles per hour at sea level and decreases with altitude. Reaching 0.86 Mach on the sixth flight, the X-1 began to experience turbulence from the shock wave formed by the compression of the air. On the seventh flight, at Mach 0.94, Yeager lost the ability to control the plane's elevator, which was a problem because the shock waves caused the nose to pitch up and down. He cut the engines, dumped the fuel, and landed safely in the desert. Another pilot suggested using the horizontal stabilizer to correct the problem, and on-the-ground tests seemed to suggest the alternative method of control would work. 2 days before his historic flight, Yeager was thrown from a horse while riding with his wife and broke 2 ribs. Knowing that he would never be allowed to fly, he traveled to a doctor off base and had them taped up. Unable to close and latch the side door by hand, he utilized a broom handle at the suggestion of a fellow pilot. On October 14, 1947, Yeager and the X-1 were dropped from the B-29 and quickly accelerated away. When the controls locked up, he successfully used the horizontal stabilizer to keep the plane stable at an altitude of 43,000 feet. As the plane accelerated to a speed of 700 miles per hour, or Mach 1.06, controllers on the ground heard the first sonic boom. After exceeding the speed of sound, the buffeting decreased, creating a smooth, short flight. The plane remained supersonic for approximately 20 seconds before Yeager turned off 2 of the 4 engines and slowly decelerated. Yeager continued to fly experimental aircraft for the Air Force, and he was appointed director of the Space School, NASA's precursor, where he trained astronauts to prepare for launch. He flew more than 120 combat missions in Vietnam. After 34 years in the military, he retired in 1975 at the rank of Brigadier General, though he continued to serve as a consultant. His last flight as a military consultant occurred 50 years to this day after he broke the sound barrier at the age of 74. In 1979, Tom Wolfe's best-selling nonfiction book, The Right Stuff, and the subsequent 1983 movie popularized Yeager's exploits to a generation too young to remember them. And, by the way, The Right Stuff has been made into a TV series, which is currently showing on Nat Geo. And they've had 3 episodes. I watched all 3. It's pretty good. I'm ready to get rid of the soap operas and more into the space flight, though. So research continued on supersonic flight. By 1959, the X-15 would travel 5 times faster than the speed of sound, paving the way toward human spaceflight. The 1990s saw the launch of the high-speed research program, a NASA industry collaboration to develop a concept for the next-generation supersonic passenger jet. Engineers envisioned it carrying 300 passengers at more than 1,500 miles per hour. Although phased out in 1999 because of economic constraints, the HSR effort set new standards and concepts for propulsion systems, materials and structures, cockpit controls, and assessment of environmental impacts, NASA said in a statement. In 2016, Langley announced it was collaborating with Lockheed Martin to assess quiet supersonic technology as part of NASA's latest X-plane initiative, New Aviation Horizons. We're at the right place, the right time with the right technologies. Jaiwan Shin, Associate Administrator for NASA's Aeronautics Research Mission Directorate, said in a statement, "We need the X-planes to prove in an undeniable way how tech can make aviation more Earth-friendly, reduce delays, and maintain safety for the flying public. and support an industry that's critical to our nation's economic vitality. All right, any questions? All right, next up, Chaz, KF5JHA, with his regular What's Up?
Good evening, everyone. This is Chaz, KF5JHA. My degree is in astrophysics, and I'm the astrophysics lab manager at Dallas College on the Brookhaven campus. We call this segment of Skynet What's Up, because I talk about what's up in the sky. Mr. Slide Changer, I'm on slide number 2. Yesterday, on October the 16th, the moon was new. That means the current phase of the moon is a waxing crescent. You may have been able to see it in the low evening sky and twilight tonight. The moon will be at its first quarter phase on October the 23rd, and we will have a full moon on October the 31st. The blue moon is on October the 31st. What we call the second full moon in the same month is a blue moon. So on average, we get a blue moon about every 2.5 years, or about once every blue moon. Slide number 3. On October the 6th was the closest approach of Mars on the Earth, and Mars was at opposition on October the 13th, just a few days ago. What this amounts to is that this is a great time to go look at Mars through a telescope. Since public observing has been canceled due to COVID-19, just get your own telescope, the big one that you've got sitting in the corner, that you've got clothes hanging on. Yeah, okay, take the clothes off, dust it off, take it out, and go gaze at Mars. It's that bright orangish thing in the eastern sky right now, tonight. Slide number 4. On October the 22nd, look at the southwestern evening sky to find the moon, Jupiter, and Saturn all in conjunction with each other. Saturn and Jupiter are getting closer and closer together and will be in conjunction on December the 20th and December the 21st in the twilight southwestern evening sky. The last great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn was on May the 31st, 2000. But on December 20 and 21 of this year, the two planets will be so close together they will appear like one object to just your naked eye. And in telescopes, we'll be able to see both planets in the same field of view at the same time. Looking to the east on the evening of October 28th, that's only a week and a half from now, you'll find Mars and the moon in conjunction. Mars will still be very close then, so go out and take a look at the moon and Mars through telescopes. Slide number 6. Let's talk about meteor showers in October. There are 5 meteor showers worth talking about in October. 3 of them have already occurred. 1 is occurring right now. The Epsilon Gemini meteor shower will peak tonight. Yeah, if you're out away from the city lights, you could see a handful of meteors. But one of the major annual meteor showers, the Orionids, will peak on the night of October 21st and 22nd with about 20 to 30 meteors per hour. I always suggest camping at a Texas state park to watch the meteors. For more details about meteors and meteor showers, visit the American Meteor Society at amsmeteors.org or the International Meteor Organization, IMO.net. And my call sign is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. Last week I talked about the Milky Way and how it stretches from the southwestern horizon through the zenith to the northeastern horizon, just as it gets dark this time of the year. If you get a chance to get away from the city lights, maybe you're looking at Mars, maybe you're looking at meteors, but maybe you can go out there and look at the Milky Way that stretches from one horizon to the other horizon over the next week to 10 10 days. If you have binoculars, take those with you. Last week I also talked about the constellations Cassiopeia, Cepheus, Andromeda, Pegasus, Perseus, and Cetus, and the mythological story that links them together. Slide number 8, let's take a look at other things that are in the northern sky. Low in the northeastern sky at sunset, well, just after sunset, as its twilight is fading, you can find the Big Dipper. 3 stars that make up its curved handle and the 4 stars of its bowl. The Big Dipper is not an official constellation, but rather part of a constellation called an asterism. The Big Dipper is part of the constellation called Ursa Major, the Big Bear. Ursa Major is standing on the northeastern horizon. The bowl of the Big Dipper is the handle of the bear. The body of the bear, excuse me. I'm thinking of 2 things at the same time. So the bowl of the Big Dipper is the body of the bear. Some of the stars to the right of the bowl make up his head, and a few of the stars below the bowl make up his legs. And the handle of the Big Dipper is the tail of the bear. So why does the big bear have such a long tail? Well, there is a story behind that, but that's a tale too long to tell here. Okay, I hear those groans out there. Slide number 9. Following the curve of the arc of the handle of the Big Dipper, to the left you will run into a bright star called Arcturus, kind of low in the sky. It's the brightest star in the constellation of Boötes, the herdsman or the shepherd. For many people, Boötes looks like a kite or an ice cream cone. If we go back to the Big Dipper and draw a line from the star at the bottom of the bowl, called Merak, to the opposite, which is the star at the top of the bowl, called Dubhe, these are called the pointer stars because they point right at a very special star. You know what that star is? Keep drawing the line to the pointer stars until you run into another star. That's the North Star, or also known as Polaris. It isn't very bright. It's the 49th brightest star in the sky. Polaris is famous because it is so close to the North Celestial Pole that it really doesn't move very much over the course of the night or move very much over the course of the year. Polaris's altitude is the same as your northern latitude. Here in the DFW area, we are about 33 degrees north latitude, so Polaris is about 33 degrees high in altitude. Polaris is the in star in the handle of the Little Dipper. Most of the stars in the Little Dipper are too faint to be seen inside the city. Slide number 11. Now, halfway between the Big Dipper pointer stars and Polaris, they're a faint star, which is the end of the tail of Draco the Dragon. Draco has lots of faint stars, and again, they're difficult to see inside the city. But Draco is sort of a Chinese parade dragon that wraps its way around the bowl of the Little Dipper, protecting the North Star, Polaris. The brightest star in the head of Draco is called Edmund, and it's very near the bright star Vega, which is close to the zenith right now. I know, I've been dragging on about these constellations, but I think it was worth it. So this is KF5, JHA. I laugh at my own jokes. And this is Skynet. Once again, the Texas Astronomical Society next club meeting is on October the 23rd, 6 days from now, 7:30 p.m. It's a virtual one. David Eicher is the editor-in-chief of Astronomy magazine, and he's our featured speaker. Once again, more information can be found at texasastro.org. Now, slide number 13. Do any of you out there in Radio Land have any questions or need a fill on any of the information? Or do you just have a general astronomy question? I don't know everything. I love to listen to questions, but I might know the answer to your question. Come now with your call sign if you have a question. Yeah, Kelly's over here singing on Echo Link. Doobie, doobie, doo. Oh, we can't do that on air, can we? Okay, I want to welcome the students from Brookhaven, the Brookhaven campus, that's part of Dallas College, that are listening and watching Skynet tonight. students, just a reminder, if you want to get stargazing class credit for this, then remember to fill out the form within the next 48 hours. Slide number 14. So as the moon wanes during the first half of October, so do these words for this segment of Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. And until next week, keep looking up so you know what's up. This is KF5 JHA, back to net control.
Thank you, Chaz. This is WB5OZL. Do we have any more check-ins?
This is Whiskey Bravo number 4, Mike Foxtrot India WC4MFI Ted Dallas Low Power Long Time.
Alrighty, we have KE5RFZ Darwin, WB4MFI Ted, and Enrique from Dallas College also wants to be checked in. Okay, moving along. This is the part where we usually do space exploration and space history, and Kelly and I alternate. But tonight, it's my turn, but KE5ICX Tom is going to take it for me. So go ahead, Tom.
All right, thank you, Miss Brenda. This is KE5ICX. My name's Tom. I'll be doing space exploration and space history this evening because, let's face it, Brenda had to do everything tonight. And I said, well, I'll do it. So I'm doing it right now. So here we go. Space exploration news on Thursday. That's October 15th. 2 pieces of space junk safely passed each other in what would have been a collision. The odds of the crash were higher than 10%. That's huge when it comes to space stuff, according to an analysis from the California-based space tracking company Leo Labs. The 2 large pieces of orbital debris may have collided, including a defunct Soviet navigation satellite and a Chinese used rocket body. Also, a Russian MS-17 Soyuz capsule broke a spaceflight record this week when it arrived at the International Space Station on Wednesday. That's October 14th. The flight, which brought NASA astronaut Keith Rubins and Russian cosmonauts Sergei Ryzhikov and Sergei Kudzerkov to the orbiting lab, made the trip in just 3 hours and 3 minutes. That is a record. The Soyuz spacecraft usually takes about 6 hours to reach the space station from Earth, and that's on their usual really fast approach. This was the fast approach. What happens when they're up there, what everybody says, Sergei, and 2 guys turn around and say, which one? NASA officials announced on Tuesday that 8 countries have signed a preamble to government-to-government agreements that establish how countries will be participating in the lunar exploration of the Artemis program. The nations that signed these set of principles, called the Artemis Accords, are Australia, Canada, Japan, Luxembourg, Italy, the United Kingdom, the United Arab Emirates, and the United States. An uncrewed New Shepard launch vehicle from Blue Origin successfully launched on Tuesday. The test mission, called NS-13, was the 7th consecutive test flight for this launch booster and was the 13th flight for Blue Origin's New Shepard program. The private spaceflight company ultimately seeks to launch commercial passengers into suborbital space. And now on to space-related birthdays. On October 15th, 1829, Astronaut was born. He was an American astronomer most famous for having discovered the two moons of Mars, Deimos and Phobos, in 1877. He determined the orbits of other planets and of double stars, the rotation of Saturn, and the mass of Mars. On this date, in 1956, Jemison was born. She's an American engineer, physician, and former NASA astronaut. She became the first black woman to travel into space and served as a mission specialist aboard the Space Shuttle Endeavour. She was selected to serve for STS-47 mission and orbited the Earth for nearly 8 days from September 12th to 20th, 1992. And I don't have it here on the information list, but if you're a Star Trek fan, she also appeared in engineering in one of the episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation. This week in space history, on October 12, 1964, Voskhod 1 launched a three-person spaceflight with the seventh crewed Russian spaceflight being the first to carry more than one crewman into orbit. First flight without the use of spacesuits and the first to carry either an engineer or a physician into outer space. It also set a crewed spacecraft altitude of 209 miles. On this date in 2008, the ISS Expedition 18 crew was launched. It was the 18th permanent crew of the International Space Station. First two crew members, Michael Sike and Yuri Lokchetkov, were launched on October 12, 2008, aboard the Soyuz TMA-13. On October 13th, 1773, Charles Messier observed M51. Messier's occupation as a comet hunter led him to continually come across fixed diffuse objects in the night sky which could be mistaken for comets. He compiled a list of them in collaboration with his friend and assistant Pierre Michon, who may have found at least 20 of the objects. To avoid wasting time sorting them out from the comets they were looking for. The Whirlpool Galaxy, which is M51, now get it right, on October 13, 1773, while hunting for objects. So, there you have it. In 1968, on this day, the Apollo 7 mission had its first live TV broadcast from space. During the transmissions, nicknamed the Wally, Walt, and Don Show, the astronauts gave a tour of their spacecraft, demonstrated the effects of microgravity, and even played a few jokes. Sherrod wrote, "Deke Slayton, are you a turtle?" on a cue card, knowing that his boss, watching in Houston, wouldn't be able to give the required fighter pilot response, "You bet your sweet ass I am," on live television. And as most of you know, but if you don't, I'm going to tell you anyway, the Apollo 7 command module is at the Frontiers of Flight Museum in Dallas. And I'll be there tomorrow, so if you want to get in for free, come on by and I'll get you in and you can see it. And I'll give you unnecessary details about free, I tell you. And this is KE5 ICX, and I have control of Skynet right now. In 2004, on this date, the ISS Expedition 10 crew was launched. It was the 10th expedition to the International Space Station using the Soyuz TMA-5, which stayed during the expedition for an emergency evacuation. Leroy Chiao and Saujan Sharipov docked at the ISS on October 16th. Chiao was the first astronaut to vote in a U.S. presidential election from space. And then you heard about this from Brenda earlier. The world's first supersonic flight was October 14th, 1947. The X-1, piloted by Chuck Yeager, was the first manned airplane to exceed the speed of sound in level flight and was the first of the X-planes, a series of American experimental rocket planes and non-rocket planes designed for testing new technologies. The plane was dropped launch from the bomb bay of a B-29 and reached Mach 1.06, or over 700 miles per hour. In 1957, the U.S. Air Force announced the X-20 Dinosaur project. The Dinosaur was the United States Air Force program to develop a space plane that could be used for a variety of military missions, including aerial reconnaissance, bombing, space rescue, satellite maintenance, and as a space interceptor to sabotage enemy satellites. The program ran from October 24, 1957 to December 10, 1963, at a cost of $660 million and was canceled just after the spacecraft construction had begun. Also on this date, Venera 16 was launched on June 7, 1983 and reached orbit on October 11, 1983. The spacecraft was inserted into Venus orbit a day apart from Venera 15. The spacecraft imaged the area from the North Pole down to about 30 degrees north latitude, or approximately 25% of Venus's surface, over the 8 months of mapping operations. On October 15, 1997, the Cassini-Huygens was launched aboard a Titan 4B Centaur on that date. The Cassini-Huygens Space Research Mission, commonly called Cassini, involved a collaboration between NASA, the European Space Agency, ESA, and the Italian Space Agency, ASI, to send a probe to study the planet Saturn and its system, including its rings and natural satellites. Cassini was active in space for nearly 20 years, with 13 years spent orbiting Saturn and studying the planet. Also on this date, Shenzhou 5 was the first human spaceflight mission of the Chinese space program. Launched on this date, the Shenzhou spacecraft was in 2003, by the way, was launched on a Long March 2F launch vehicle. There have been 4 previous flights of uncrewed Shenzhou missions since 1999. China became the 3rd country in the world to have independent human spaceflight capability after the Soviet Union, later Russia, and the United States. And this is KE5ICX. And next up, October 17, 2016, the Shenzhou 11 was launched with a crewed spaceflight from the Xinkan Satellite Launch Center. It was China's 6th crewed space mission, and its longest to date at 33 days. 2 days after launch, it docked with the Tiangong 2 Space Laboratory, which had been launched on September 5th, 2016. By the way, you can still see it in orbit. Oh, wait, maybe not. I think it may have re-entered. No, that was Tiangong 1. any case, now I think they're both gone now that I think about it. This is KE5 ICX back to World Net Control.
This is N5BB. I have a question about one of Tom's comments.
N5BB, go ahead and ask him directly.
Hey, Tom. Maybe I misunderstood, but I saw early there in all of your comments that you said that Leo Labs was predicting a possible collision with the Cosmos satellite. They verified within the last 2 days that it did not. That event happened a couple of days ago, and it missed. And so I was maybe I misunderstood your comment. Their latest assessment was the miss distance was 11 meters plus 16 minus 11. So in other words, that they see no debris, but they believe that it missed roughly 11 meters away, which is too close for comfort. N5BB.
That's almost close enough to shake hands. All right, this is WV5OZL. Do we have any more check-ins, please? Okay, none heard. We're going to move into Miss Carolyn's constellation of the week. Carolyn is a silent key. We miss her a lot, and she was here every week with a different constellation. It was very enjoyable and informative, and when she passed away, we decided to carry on with Constellation of the Week in her honor, and now it is done by Chaz, KFI-JAJ. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Brenda. And yes, we had, Carolyn with us for quite some time until May of 2019. Since there are about 52 easily visible constellations seen in Texas throughout the year, out of the 88 total constellations in the sky, Miss Carolyn covered the entire sky that we can see here in Texas in a year. So in her honor, as you said, we continue the tradition of having a constellation per week. Miss Carolyn's constellation of the week this week is actually two of them. Something fishy, Pisces Australis, and the southern fish, and Grooth. What the heck is a Grooth? I gave that as a question last week. Do you know what that is? It's a crane. Okay, so we have a fish and a crane tonight. And unfortunately, Tom was talking about Messier objects. We have no Messier objects in either one of these constellations. Oh well. Slide number 16, Pisces Australis. The southern fish is located just below Aquarius. The Greeks knew that the constellation as a great fish and depicted it as swallowing the water poured out by Aquarius, the water bearer. The two fish represented by Pisces constellation were said to be the offspring of the great fish, Pisces Australis. Slide number 17, Fomalhaut. The name Fomalhaut is derived from the Arabic, which means the mouth of the fish. So that star, you know what it means. It's one of the four royal stars, or the heavenly watchers, of the ancient Mesopotamians. The other three stars are Rigel, that's in Leo, Aldebaran, that's in Taurus, and Antares, which is in the Scorpion. Fomalhaut is the 18th brightest star in the sky, shining at magnitude 1.3. Its main sequence star of A3 designation, it's about twice the diameter of our sun and about 14 times more luminous. It lies a distance of only 23 light years away, so it's pretty close to us. Fomalhaut became noteworthy for being the first star to have an extrasolar planet, it's called Fomalhaut B, that has been imaged directly in visible light. LaSalle 9352 is a different star. It's faint, but its star lies in the southeast corner of the constellation, about 1 degree south-southeast of Pi Pisces Australis. LaSalle 9352 can be seen in a finder scope of most telescopes. The star is noted for being the 10th closest star to our solar system. That's why I wanted to talk about it for a moment. And for a very large proper motion, that means if you take a look at it and take a look at it a couple of years later, it's moved significantly where you can actually tell it through a telescope. That's the proper motion. It has, let me see. It has the fourth fastest proper motion in the sky. 3 faster proper motions is Barnard's star in Ophiuchus, Captain's star in Pictor, and Groom's Bride 1830 in Ursa Major. So pretty fast traveling across our visual frame. LaSalle 9352 is a red dwarf star of magnitude 7.39. Can't see it with your 2 eyes, but you need some optical aid to see it. And again, it's pretty close. It's only 11.9 light years away. Its luminosity is only about 1/85th that of our sun. Slide number 18, NGC, that stands for New General Catalog, 7314, that's the 7,314th object in it. It's also called ARP-14 from Halton ARP's catalog of Atlas of Peculiar Galaxies. ARP noted that NGC 7314 has a spiral with detached segments and having almost no nucleus. David Hutchinson from the Texas Astronomical Society writes that ARP 14 and its magnitude plus 11 spiral galaxy and is classified as a Seyfert galaxy. Seyfert galaxies are active galaxies that show high ionization emission lines. David also describes NGC 7314 as an easy target for a 16-inch Newtonian and reports that some have seen this galaxy in as small as a 6-inch telescope. Another object, NGC 7313, Hutchinson writes, describes that this galaxy is faint and a small companion to NGC 7314, but it's not very far away, but it shines only at about 14.3 magnitude, so you need a big instrument to be able to see that thing. Slide number 19, Hixson Compact Group 90. That would be an interesting name to have, HCG. It's comprised of 3 different NGC objects, 7173, 7174, and 7176. These 3 galaxies will eventually merge into one, and they're about 100 million light years distance from the Earth. If you're looking at the video feed of this radio broadcast, you'll see the picture of them, 7173, 7174, and 7176. They're part of the Hixson Compact Group 90. It was discovered by Paul Hixson, who first cataloged these small clusters of galaxies in the 1980s. NGC 7173 and 7176 appeared to be smooth, normal elliptical galaxies without much gas or dust. In stark contrast, NGC 7174 is a mangled spiral galaxy barely clinging to independent existence as it's being ripped apart by those close neighbors. The strong tidal interaction surging through the galaxy has dragged a significant number of stars away from their home galaxies. These stars are now spread out, forming a tenuous, luminous component in the galaxy group. All right, let's move on to a different constellation. This is slide number 20, Grooth. Constellation that lies in the southern sky. It means the crane in Latin. The stars of Grooth were once part of Pisces Australis. That's why I'm talking about them together. The constellation first appeared in a celestial atlas in 1603 by Bayer's Unimetria. In the early 17th century, it briefly went by the name of the Flamingo. Okay, it could be called a flamingo, but it's called a crane now. Grooth is the 45th constellation in size, occupying an area of 366 square degrees in the sky. There are no myths associated with the constellation. Grooth was one of the 12 constellations created by the Dutch explorers in the late 16th century. The only connection with the crane in mythology lies in the fact that it is a sacred bird to the god Hermes. Almar is the brightest star in the constellation. It has an apparent magnitude of 1.74 and is approximately 101 light years distant from us. Almar is either a main sequence star. It's right on the border between either a main sequence star, stellar classification of B65, or a B74 class subgiant. It has a radius of 3.4 times the Sun and 4 times the solar mass, and is about 263 times more luminous. The star's estimated age is 100 million years. Almar is a rapid rotator with a projected rotational velocity of 215 kilometers per second. That is fast. Based on excess infrared emissions, the star is believed to have a dust disk in its orbit. That means it might be forming planets right now. Isn't that a great name for a star in the constellation called Grooth? It is a red giant belonging to the spectral classification of M53. That means it's kind of small. It has a visual magnitude of 2.146 and about 177 light years distance from the Sun. It is the second brightest star in Grooth. The star is classified as a semi-regular variable and has a luminosity that varies by a magnitude of about half a magnitude over a period of 37 days or a little bit longer. The star is 2.4 times the Sun's mass and 180 times the solar radius. It's approximately 1,500 times more luminous than the Sun. One more star I want to talk about is Delta Grooth. It's a binary star. It's composed of a G73 type star with an apparent magnitude of 3.97 and another star, about 43A is a spectral classification and a magnitude of 4.17. Under good conditions, both stars are visible to the naked eye, but you need to be away from the city lights to be able to see the fainter companion. Slide number 22. Grooth quartuplet. What? 4 of something? They're interacting galaxies. We were talking about a group earlier in Pisces Australis, but this is one that's, wow. In this constellation of Grooth, NGC 7552, 7590, 7599, and actually 7582. Located northeast of the star Theta Grooth, all of the galaxies are members of an IC group of stars. Usually when you see the IC designation on an object, that means you can't see it, but in this case you can. IC 1459 group. The galaxies occupy an area only about 10 arc minutes across and are sometimes known as the Grooth triplet, although there's more than 3 of them. Slide number 23. This is a great name for an object. The Spare Tire, spelled T-Y-R-E. Nebula. Spare Tire Nebula, IC 5148 is also its designation, is a beautiful planetary nebula located about 3,000 light years away. It's about 1 degree west of the star Lambda Grooth. Nicknamed the Spare Tire, it has a diameter of a couple of light years across and is one of the fastest expanding planetary nebula known, with an expansion rate of 50 kilometers per second. The nebula occupies an area of only 2 minutes by 2 minutes and is a visual magnitude, now get this, it's really faint, 16.5. None of the telescopes I usually use could be able to see it. This would be something you'd have to photograph. Lies about 3,000, oh, I already said that, 3,000 light years from the Earth. And I am KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide number 24, there are more than Astronomical League observing program objects in the constellations of Pisces Australis and the Southern Fish and Grooth the Crane. I've just given you a sampling of a few of those objects. The Astronomical League has over 60 different observing programs, most of which have about 100 objects. So if you observe just 10 different objects from an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pen in about a year. And slide number 25, that is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, Pisces Australis, the Southern Fish, and Grooth the Crane. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for their research and words that I borrow. And on the deep sky objects, I also use sometimes the website constellation-guide.com for information. Next week, I'll be taking a look at Lacerda, the lizard. Stay tuned to find out more about that next week. And this is KF5JHA, back to net control. Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you very much, Chaz. That was quite interesting. Do we have any more check-ins? This is WB50ZO.
Kilo, Bravo 9, Sierra, Oscar, Kilo, Sean in Fort Worth.
Okay, we got Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo Sean. Thank you for joining us. Moving on, next up is space launches for this week. Tom, KE5ICX, tell us what's going on.
Thank you, Miss Brenda. This is KE5ICX. I'm back. Let's see. The information I get from for launches comes from spacecoastlaunches.com, and my favorite is spaceflightnow.com and /launch schedule. That's the best one because they do international stuff. October 18th, Falcon 9 Starlink version 1.1 L13 will launch from the Launch Complex 39A Kennedy Space Center. It will be the 14th batch of approximately 60 satellites from SpaceX Starlink broadband network. A mission designated Starlink V1.0L13. Also in October, it could pop up at any time, is the Long March 6 NewSat launch of 10 NewSat Earth imaging satellites from Tianyang, China, for Satellogic, an Argentine satellite manufacturer and remote sensing company. On October 20th, an Electron in focus launch will be from Launch Complex 1 from Mahia Peninsula in New Zealand. The Rocket Lab Electron rocket will launch on its 15th flight with the CESat-2B Earth imaging microsatellite for Canon Electronics. Yeah, it's those people with the cameras, and 9 Super Dove Earth imaging nanosatellites for Planet. Rocket Lab nicknamed the launch in focus in reference to Earth's observation payloads on the mission. Oh, wait, there's more. Falcon 9, on October 21st, Falcon 9 Starlink version 1.0 L14 will launch at 12:36 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time from Launch Complex 40, that's right across from 39, Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, Florida. SpaceX Falcon 9 will launch the 15th batch of approximately 60 satellites for SpaceX Starlink broadband network. On October 25th, the time is yet to be determined. The Russian government's Soyuz rocket from Polensky Cosmodrome in Russia will launch the Glasnost K navigation satellite. Their upgraded spacecraft for Russia's Glasnost Positioning and Timing Network. The spacecraft will fly on a Soyuz 2.1B configuration with forget upper stage. This is delayed from August 6th. Here's another one. Delta IV Heavy, the NRO 44, will launch from Cape Canaveral's Launch Complex 37B in Florida. The United States Launch Alliance Delta IV Heavy rocket will launch a classified spy satellite cargo for the U.S. National Reconnaissance Office, the largest of the Delta IV family. The Heavy version features 3 common booster cores mounted together to form a triple body rocket. This was delayed from June and August 26th. And then finally, in late October, the Falcon 9 NRO 108 flight out of Cape Canaveral, Florida, will launch a classified spacecraft payload for the U.S. National Reconnaissance Office. Boy, they're busy. The mission is designated NRO 108. The first stage booster is expected to attempt to return to launch site, landing at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. And that's it from me. This is KE5ICX. Back to net control.
Thank you, Tom. This is WV50ZL. Do we have any more check-ins? All right, our next segment is recent astronomical discoveries, and I'm going to tell you about the black hole always chirps twice, new clues deciphering the shape of black holes. A team of gravitational wave scientists, led by the ARC Center of Excellence for Gravitational Wave Discovery, cleverly called OSGRAV, revealed that when 2 black holes collide and merge, the remnant black hole chirps not once but multiple times, emitting gravitational waves, intense ripples in the fabric of space and time that inform us about its shape. Today, the study appears in Communications Physics, published by Nature. Black holes are one of the most fascinating objects in the universe. At their surface, known as the event horizon, gravity is so strong that not even light can escape from them. Usually, black holes are quiet, silent creatures that swallow anything getting too close to them. This sounds like a sci-fi movie. However, when 2 collide and merge together, they produce one of the most catastrophic events in the universe. In a fraction of a second, a highly deformed black hole is born and releases tremendous amounts of energy as it settles to its final form. This phenomenon gives astronomers a unique chance to observe rapidly changing black holes and explore gravity in its most extreme form. Although colliding black holes do not produce light, astronomers can observe the detected gravitational waves, ripples in the fabric of space and time that bounce off them. Scientists speculate that after a collision, the behavior of the remnant black hole is key to understanding gravity and should be encoded in the emitted gravitational waves. In the article published in Communications Physics of Nature, a team of scientists led by OSGRAV alumnus Professor Juan Calderon Bucio, now La Caixa Junior Leader, Marie Curie Fellow at the Galician Institute for High Energy Physics, Santiago de Compostela, Spain, has revealed how gravitational waves encode the shape of merging black holes as they settle to their final form. Graduate student co-author Christopher Evans from the Georgia Institute of Technology in the USA says we performed simulations of black hole collisions using supercomputers and then compared the rapidly changing shape of the remnant black hole to the gravitational wave it emits. We discovered that these signals are far more rich and complex than commonly thought, allowing us to learn more about the vastly changing shape of the final black hole. The gravitational waves from colliding black holes are very simple signals known as chirps. As the two black holes approach each other, they emit a signal of increasing frequency and amplitude that indicates the speed and radius of the orbit. According to Professor Calderon-Bustillo, the pitch and amplitude of the signal increases as the two black holes approach faster and faster. After the collision, the final remnant black hole emits a signal with a constant pitch and decaying amplitude like the sound of a bell being struck. This principle is consistent with the gravitational wave observations so far when studying the collisions from the top. Stand by just a moment, please. So sorry. Article's almost over anyway. Co-author Professor Pablo Laguna, former chair of the School of Physics at Georgia Tech and now professor at University of Texas at Austin, pointed out while a relation between gravitational waves and the behavior of the final black hole has long been conjectured, our study provides the first explicit example of this kind of relation. Next up, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days. Tom, KE5ICX. Go ahead.
All right, thank you, Ms. Brenda. Generally, we don't get to this part, but I'm ready to go. Let's see. We have all the times that I'm listing are local Dallas times. You can go ahead and put your own information in at heavens-above.com. Heavens with a hyphen, above.com. Put in your longitude and latitude or follow the encouraging signs on how to do that. The International Space Station has two good passes. October 22nd, minus 3.8 magnitude at 6:46 a.m. out of the southwest, reaches highest point at 69 degrees at 6:49, and it falls at 6:52 to the northeast. Then we have October 23rd. That is a minus 3.4 magnitude at 6:01 a.m. and it reaches highest point at 6:01:53 at 58 degrees, and then it falls at 6:05 to the northeast. That one, I believe, goes into shade, if I can read my numbers correctly. Next up, and I don't have a lot tonight, but I do have a North Korean satellite. That thing was launched several years ago and is inert right now. However, it has a pass on October 19th at 6.5 magnitude. That is a bit faint. At 7:09 a.m., reaches its highest point at 56 degrees at 7:12, then falls at 7:15 now the south-southwest. Does another flight over at October 20th at 7.3 magnitude, 6:42 a.m., reaches its highest point at 53 degrees at 6:46 and then falls at 6:49. That's a full pass. October 23rd, it has a 6.4 magnitude at 6:57 out of the north. It reaches almost overhead at 6:01, 85 degrees out of the west-northwest, and then falls at 7:04. And then there's another one, October 26th, October 26th, there's actually two passes, but the good one is at 7:12 a.m. out of the north at reaches its highest point at 7:15, then falls at 7:19 out south-southwest. And then finally, Envisat, ENVISAT, is north-south satellite, October 19th. It flies over 6.1 magnitude at 19:53. That's 7:53 local time out of the south. Whoops, wrong one. 7:02 a.m. Let me get the right one. This is the morning pass. Out of the north-northeast at 7:07. It'll reach its highest point at 50 degrees and then fall at 7:12. Then there is the 23rd. There's two passes. The good one is in the evening this time, 3.9 magnitude on the 23rd, 1903, due south. It will reach its highest point at 55 degrees at 1908, and then it will fall at 1913. So, does this all matter? Well, those are visible satellite passes, but you can also find those with Amsat satellites. You don't need any special program to do that. Just go to heavens-above.com, find the information there, go to Amsat and find out what the frequencies are for the satellites, and then you can go ahead and track. You'd be amazed at what you can do in that regard. Back to net control. This is KE5ICX.
Thank you, Tom. Well, we're about out of time, and we're about out of stuff to say, although that's hard to believe. So I think we're going to close down the net here very shortly. Any last-minute check-ins? All right, we'd like to ask everybody to join us in a few minutes right here for what we call Afterglow. We're going to discuss the movie 0 Hour. So hope if you've seen it, come join us, and if you haven't, you can still come and talk about movies or anything you want to. All right, tonight we had 26 hams participating on the air. Thanks to all who checked in this evening. We hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the other DARC NIF. If you would like to try your hand at this, contact any of the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics, discussions about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and Twitter, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. Until next Saturday night, this is WB50ZL, Brenda, and I'll be closing the net at 10:28 local time and returning the repeater to normal amateur use. 73 everybody, and enjoy the evening discovering the universe.
Normal state.
We'll be back to discuss the movie 0 Hour from 1957 with lots of dialogue that you will probably recognize, even though you may have never seen the movie 0 Hour. There's a reason for that. If you don't know what that is, and if you haven't seen the movie, it's okay. Check in, because you'll be able to actively participate. There's a reason why. Come back in 5 minutes. This is KE5ICX.
So I have a question. Every time we end Skynet and we go to Afterglow, it says normal state. I don't think the Afterglow is normal. KF5JJ.
No, it's saying that the end
I'm
of
completely
Skynet
operational and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
Afterglow moving net.
kind of out there. WT9Z.
Chad, for you, it's an abnormal situation inside BB.
Wrong movie, Bill. Wrong movie. WT9B.
I don't know. Do you think we'll ever get over Macho Grande?
I don't know. Walk like this. Inside BB. Hey, I watched the movie, Tom.
You better have taken notes.
This movie quote stew is delicious.
Tom, I took one note. So there. Inside BB.
And if I know Bill, it'll take him 15 minutes to read it. WT9B.
With fronds like that, who needs enemies? Inside BB.
Bill, you should have said, I've taken one note, and it's B sharp.
I feel, what do they call it? Quartet at any moment. Barbershop shop Corvette. Pardon me, PRM.
Corvette's made by Chevrolet. Chaz, your comment is a plus. Inside BB.
When do we put in our order for our in-flight meal sent by IMS?
If you already ordered your meal, you're not getting anything. Sorry.
I'd like to order a ham sandwich, please.
JJ, I'm taking the pork chops.
I want the lasagna.
Cake or death. And we're out of cake.
So you're giving me the fish, huh?
All right, who the hell has this net tonight? Who's the NCS? Who's the captain of this trip?
Well, you're the captain, but apparently you had the fish.
If I had the fish, I'm good to go. All I have to do is fall unconscious.
Time to fish or cut bait. Are you doing the net, Michael?
Stewardesses should be back in the main cabin.
I don't know, Brenda. I think maybe some people need to be banned.
I'm not going to say it. All right, so I got told by the stewardess that I had to play net control tonight. I'm not sure who put her in charge, or even if anybody did. But here I am, WT9V, and here we are, whoever we is tonight. So as usual, around this time, on a Saturday night, it's the Afterglow movie net time, wherein we discuss a movie that Captain Tom assigns us to watch, whether he does or not, and then come back with snappy commentary in order to amuse him. Captain Tom lets us know what movie to watch ahead of time, so that we'll have time to make notes and prepare amusing anecdotes for Saturday night. If you're not on the notification list, well, shame on you. You should be. Send an email to Captain Tom, and he'll put you on the list. His email is ke5icx@yahoo.com. Or if you prefer, you can go to Afterglow Movie, which is 2 words, on Facebook, and get the notifications when Captain Tom posts them, usually Sunday or Monday, or sometimes Friday, but usually earlier. You really should sign up for it. I've often said that the movie playing in Captain Tom's head is more entertaining than the real movie. So, tonight's movie, let me summarize. I actually, for once, got Tom's crack team of researchers to give me a little bit of information, which is, very unusual. So, ex-fighter pilot Ted Striker is a traumatized war veteran turned taxi driver. Because of his pathological fear of flying and drinking problem, being unable to take a drink without splashing it on his face, he's been unable to hold a responsible job. His wartime girlfriend, Elaine Dickinson, now a flight attendant, leaves him before boarding her assigned flight from Los Angeles to Chicago. Ted abandons his taxi and buys a ticket on the same flight to try and win her back. However, she still continues to reject him during the flight. After the in-flight meal is served, several of the passengers and the flight crew fall ill, including Captain Tom. Passenger Dr. Ramak discovers that the fish served on board caused food poisoning. With the flight crew incapacitated, Elaine contacts the Chicago control tower for help and is instructed by tower supervisor Steve McCrafty to activate the plane's autopilot, a large inflatable pilot named Otto, which will get them to Chicago but will not be able to land the plane. Elaine and Dr. Ramak convince Ted to take the controls. When Steve learns that Ted is piloting, he contacts Ted's former commanding officer, Rex Kramer, now serving as a commercial pilot, so that he can talk Ted through landing the plane. Ted becomes troubled when Rex starts giving instructions and briefly stresses out from flashbacks to the war. Elaine and Dr. Ramak bolster Ted's confidence, and he takes the controls under Rex's guidance. As the plane nears Chicago, the weather worsens, making landing difficult. With Elaine's help as co-pilot and Rex's guidance, Ted is able to land the plane safely with the passengers suffering only minor injuries, despite the landing gear being sheared off. Rescue vehicles arrive to help unload the plane. Impressed by Ted's display of courage, Elaine embraces and kisses him, rekindling their relationship. The two watch as Otto takes control of the plane, inflates a female companion, and takes off. Hold on a minute. Somebody's telling me that I read the summary for the wrong movie. It doesn't really matter. It's the same thing. Honestly, I think that Captain Tom should be making this announcement. He probably would have done better, but as we've heard above, he had the fish. Okay, time to see if I, Michael, WT9V, have been talking to myself all this time. You know the drill, and if you don't, please form an orderly queue, no pushing, maintaining social distancing. You people in first class, you can board first, although I don't understand why. Let me know your call sign, name, location, and how long you think that N5BB will talk about dead people in this movie.
November 5, India, Mike, Sierra, JJ, and Carrollton. And not only have I seen the movie, I have the DVD.
Kilo Golf 5, Zombies Need Jobs, Frank and Flower Mound. And yes, I saw the movie.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo, Bill and Irving. Yes, I saw the movie. 0 minutes.
Kilo Echo 5, India, Charlie, X-ray. Yeah, that is my call. Yeah. Tom, in Louisville, yes, I saw both movies.
Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brenda and DeSoto. I saw this movie.
November 5, Hotel Yankee Papa, Tom in Irving, and I saw this movie and then the other movie that was plagiarized off of this movie. Surely it was.
Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey, Jay, and I saw the film. I was about to ask her if anybody was on Echolink, but Jay already checked in. Anybody else out there, either Echolink or RF? Well, all right, perhaps not for the moment. So I have N5 IMS, JJ, yes. KG5ZNJ, Frank, yes. N5DB, Bill, yes. KG5 ICX, Captain Tom, who's supposed to be passed out, but yes. WB5 OZL, Brenda the stewardess, yes. N5 HYP, Tom and Irving, yes. And KG5 BZWJ, yes. Did I miss anybody? I'll take that as a resounding no. So, N5 IMS, what did you think about this movie that Brenda suggested? Because, you know, Brenda suggests all the bad movies from WT9V.
Well, I do think you were confused on which movie you gave the plot description for, because that one and this one are totally different. In the one you described, the couple, Ted Stryker and his girlfriend, were not married. They did not have a child. In this movie, they were married and had a son. A very important plot point. In addition, on the movie you were describing, that was a DC-8 with 4 jet engines. Now, admittedly, the audio made it sound like it was a propeller-driven plane, but, never mind. In this movie, it was a DC-4, a 4-engine propeller airplane. So, massive differences. So, other than that, pretty much we're the same. Although I did not hear anybody say, please don't call me Shirley. They did say, good luck, we're all counting on you. This is N5 IMS.
I don't understand. I mean, I got the DC-4 part. It had 4 engines. But the DC-8 only had 4 engines. Why is it an 8 instead of another DC-5? Somebody explain that. Tom, you should explain that to me whenever, you get around to your turn. But in the meantime, it's Frank's turn to tell us all about the plot, or why I read the wrong movie description, if you've noticed. KG5ZNJ, Frank, take it away from WT9V.
This is Kilo Golf 5. Zombies need jobs.
Well, looks like we'll be doing some celebrating.
Everything that the law allows. Anyway, well, I guess I'm the Queen's unofficial representative of the Dominion of Canada here, so I'll be using my time to issue corrections on things that they got right and wrong about Canada. So let's start with what? Well, we have the saga of Ted Stryker, a broken man who finds salvation. We're treated at the beginning with a very nice scene of some Spitfire 9s taking off from a grass field, and they go over a beautiful Bristol Beaufighter, very rare plane. Only one or two are left in the world, one of which is in Ottawa in ruins. Anyways, that happened to be the preferred attack plane of Biggles and Algy, the literary characters, which are often mocked by Monty Python. Most notably, Biggles and Algy were part of the Spanish Inquisition, if you remember that. Biggles, fetch the comfy chair. Anyways, their dogfighting showed the Spit 9s versus the sort of BF-109, no, not really. Those were Hispano Aviacion HA-1112s, otherwise known as the Bouchon. What those were airframes from 109s, and what they did is they put Merlin engines in them, the same ones that were in the Spitfires and the P-51 Mustangs. Those are the only real survivors of the 109s you see nowadays, usually. And in fact, the 109 that's at the Addison Museum is painted in German colors. It's actually a Spanish Bouchon. Nobody really knows this. Anyway, it showed Stryker having this kind of dogfight with his men, and, well, he crashed his Bouchon. Yeah, somehow he went from flying a Spitfire to flying a Bouchon with German colors, and he crashed that, and bunch of his men died, so obviously that was recycled footage. Anyways, it cuts to 1956 to my hometown in Ottawa, where the Parliament buildings are shown in the winter. Very pretty, I like that. But somehow, Ottawa is just merged with Winnipeg, I think it was, in the Mid-Canadian Aircraft Company Limited Jet Research Division. In reality, that would have been in Malton, Ontario, where Avro was working on the old Renda engine. Anyways, those were used on the CF-100 Canuck fighter, the only fighter Canada's ever made. It was known as the Lead Sled and also the Clunk. And anyways, that one went into mass production as a twin jet engine, and that's what Mr. Stryker would have been working on. But neither is in Winnipeg or Edmonton or whatever. It's in Malton or Ottawa. I'm not sure. The movie was very confusing. So his wife takes it. Somehow it's an American Airlines flight, but in reality it should have been a TCA flight, a Trans-Canada Airlines, not Cross-Canada Charters as they called it. And the plane itself, they showed a DC-4, but in reality it would have been a Canadair North Star. What is that, you ask? It's a DC-4 that had the engines taken out. And they put in, guess what, those same engines, the Merlin engines that were in the Bouchon, that were in the Spitfire, that were in the P-51 Mustang, and also the de Havilland Mosquito. That's my personal favorite. Anyways, the North Star was an amazing airliner because of those engines. It was faster and more reliable than a DC-4 with that upgrade. It really was an amazing plane, flew many years, but the problem was it was unbelievably loud and uncomfortable to fly in because of those engines. Lots of vibrations, lots of noise, but boy was it fast. Anyways, I'll leave the rest of the movie to the rest of yous. I just had to keep the Canadian stuff real. KG5ZNJ, back to you.
Thank you, Frank, for that little bit of Canadian history. I've actually been watching a fair amount of Canadian history of late. There's a guy in Fort St. John. It's a jet engine repair technician that works on late 50s, early 60s jet engines and gas generators. They're interestingly, surprisingly delicate on the inside for something that makes, 20,000 horsepower. Yeah, anyway, let's see. N5BB, entertain us, Bill. What you got to say about the plot? WT90.
Well, Michael in the group, this is Inside the... Well, you'll be excited to know the DC-4 had 4 radial engines. But let's not get any details. Some things about the movie. The fight scenes over in World War II, they repeated the video and audio multiple times, the same exact images. The sound was identical, the moving pictures were identical, and they did it rather blatantly. So, a very cheap, because I guess they didn't have much source material to play over and over again. And they poorly edited all that, if you ask me. Although they showed all these planes crashing and burning up and exploding, evidently Striker somehow was injured but didn't die in it. They didn't show that, which would have added a little bit to the movie, actually. But no, they just showed him in the hospital. What else? Oh, my note. The gauges on the DC-4 were flickering wildly. Did you notice that when they told him, they showed pictures of the gauges, they told him to look at it, several of those gauges were wildly going back and forth in a way that was completely impossible. So that was just some weird effect. I guess rather than showing they were moving slightly, they just made him swing from top to bottom, which I thought was really stupid. Most of the rest of the DC-4 cockpit action seemed reasonable, although I'm not really familiar with the DC-4 cockpit, but I guess it was reasonable. I guess it was that large. I don't know, but never having been in one. Seems pretty large to me. A lot of room behind the pilot and co-pilot. What else about the movie? I thought the plot was okay. I guess there was some music, but I've forgotten it, so it must not have been very exciting, or I would have noticed it, I guess. I thought that the one thing that bothered me the most was the doctor having just minimal, investigation, observation of these few patients. I didn't even see him use a thermometer. He was just kind of feeling them and looking and palpating them and looking in their throats. Immediately said they were all going to die in a couple of hours. They didn't get them to the ground where I guess they were going to pump their stomach. And I thought that was a rather extreme pronouncement of the doctor. It added some time pressure to the movie, but didn't seem plausible at all to me. I guess that's all I have right now in the first round in 5BB.
5, ACX, Captain Tom, try and rouse yourself from your coma, your fish-induced coma, and try and groan something at us, please, sir.
All right, this is KE5ICX. And I saw this movie, and it's been a long time since I've seen this movie. It used to be on ABC Movie of the Week or Movie of the Saturday Night at the Movies or something like that. I can't remember. I'm old. I remember back in the 1970s, this movie was very, very popular, and I don't know why. But the story itself, who was it? Haley. Arthur Haley, the guy who wrote Airplane, wrote this script, not Airplane, Airport, before this, after this movie. But what was interesting is why did they pick Canadians? I don't know. The pilot was erratic, Ted Stryker. I don't know. He didn't do a very good job on instruments. But in the end, it was quite amazing. And his former military commander, that's the whole thing, who was trying to help him, but that goes to the other part, which has to do with the story. That guy was really a jerk, and that contributed to Ted Stryker's whole thing. Everybody was throwing him away in the end, and he knew that. But somehow or another, he got the DC-4 down. That's a spoiler alert in case you haven't been watching movies since 1957. I know I haven't actually, but you think that. I thought the overall plot was good. The characters were forced, but that's kind of fodder for that other movie that we can't talk about. Well, we could talk about, but you already know what the movie is. Overall, the story is interesting. The thing that drives me nuts in this thing is there should be an engineer, a flight engineer there, but he's nowhere to be found. They left him behind. That's the guy that checks all the engines and everything else to make sure everything's working. He would at least know where the radio is. You don't have to talk to the flight attendant to find out where's the radio frequency thing. No, you'd have this guy over here talking in a deep voice. I know where it is. It's over there above the co-pilot's position. Madam, sir, person. But he was nowhere to be found. Obviously, he was drunk in a bar underneath a table somewhere and didn't make the flight. Nobody noticed. So, I don't know. It was interesting in the sense that it kept my attention. I didn't fall asleep. Most of Brenda's movies I fall asleep, but this one I did not. This one actually was entertaining right to the end where it said that end. And it had Canadians with no Canadian accents. None whatsoever. Frank has a Canadian accent. I can tell because I watch Hockey Night in Canada, and I know Canadian accents, Saturdays especially. So overall, it was very entertaining. We'll get to characterization. That's the juicy part of this thing. The plane when it landed, and the whole thing with the landing. How is Ted Stryker going to make that all happen? He does. He managed to do so, even though nobody was helping him. If you've worked in that environment without a DC-4 or even with a DC-4, you know what I'm talking about. So I'll give it back to Net Control. This is KE5ICX, Captain Tom.
Referring to this job as, using the word control implies something that isn't really going on here on this net. Anyway, it's time for the lady passing out the coffee and the poisonous fish, Brenda. What do you have to say for yourself? WT9V.
WB50ZL, I did not poison anybody. And I did not pick this movie. I have picked all these years one movie, The Creeping Terror. And I think we should watch it again, but Tom says no. And yeah, Frank speaks Canadian, which is almost like English. We really don't have any trouble understanding each other. It's kind of like Portuguese and Spanish can talk to each other. We Canadians and English speakers can as well. So, if this was a DC-4, it's not supposed to have a flight engineer. I looked it up. I'm not that smart. I looked on Wikipedia. If it's a DC-6, it should have one, in which case it's a different story. The guy's missing, which if he were there, he could fly the plane. So, I don't know. I can't tell these planes apart that well. I'm not that good an airplane expert. I like the movie, but it being really stupid. But what was fun is the dialogue in your head. When little Billy comes up to the cockpit, how can you unhear what the captain says to him in airplane? You can't, and you laugh. It just, it's a strange situation. But too much, a lot of silly drama, a lot of silliness. But it was the 50s. But if you like airplanes, it's great. A lot of good airplane shots. I like that. So, what else? Arthur Haley's a pretty good author. And, but, I almost feel like he might have put a little more time developing this. But that's the story with movies. Crank it out, get it out now. Doesn't have to be good, it has to be now. All right, I'm going to turn it back over. This is WB50ZL, and here is your fish, Michael.
Save the fish until it's Bill's turn. I'll get it then. And we all know you keep saying, I didn't pick this movie, but we know you picked this movie. We're all aware of your strange airplane fetish. So, there's no reason to try denying it. We all know. In 5HYP, Tom and Irving, what do you have to say about the plot or the differences between this and that other movie, and the fact that this one didn't have anything funny in it at all? I was trying to explain that. I'll get to you in a second. I was trying to explain 0 Hour to a friend up north who had never heard of it. And I said, well, it's like Airplane without the funny bits. He says, what is it? Like the beginning, it's 5 minutes long, the beginning and ending credits? And I'm like, yeah, the credits weren't that long back then. In 5HYP, Tom and Irving, this is your turn from WT90. Tom, are you out there? Okay, we'll try coming back to Tom in a few minutes. KG5, BZWJ, what do you have to say about the plot?
KG5, BZW. The plot It's hard to judge the film because just so much of it was, plagiarized by the. Excuse me, I got to do something about my radio here. Okay, yes, so for that other movie, I so many things I've attributed to that film. I just was just the overacting or on landing, and I just really could not believe it. I was just kind of like, oh, that's that scene. Oh, that's that scene. Oh, that's that stupid stuff from that scene. But five and all, I really can't say, it's a bad film or anything. It's got. I can definitely see why they used this film, but if it just I don't know, chip away at that. I guess it's not. It really isn't that bad a storyline, which will also make them good. Another reason for good parody material. If you, I don't know. A lot of things I really want to say are in reference to airplane. Some of the stuff. I don't know. The airplane seems to act. It's supposed to move like a sponge, but it seems to fly more like a Cessna, small Cessna. Some terms of the film, some of the scenes just really don't make sense. They're for drama, obviously, because hey, what can we do with our hands? Instead of being on, with the throttle, so we'll just use the most useless control when you're actually landing the airplane. Yeah, sure. That's the wheels, handles, pitch, and roll, not yaw. You kind of use your feet for yaw, and I don't know. It's just, and braking too, of course. Anyway, whatever. Golly. I don't know what else to say. I'd love to see some sort of, simultaneous comparison, or not really simultaneous, because some of the scenes might probably be at different times in each separate film, but there's just so much. But again, like I said, I'm going back to comparing it to that other film. I can't even believe that they stole Ted Stryker's name. Ted Striker, it just sounds like a parody name. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to have to leave it at that. KG5BCW.
Alrighty, thank you very much. And let's try Tom and Irving one more time. N5HYC. Are you out there, Tom? Tom seems to have abandoned us. Perhaps I imagined him checking in. I'm pretty sure he was there. Anyway, we'll go back to N5IMS, JJ, and see what kind of further thoughts he has on the subject of the characters and stuff. WT9V.
Well, first off, perhaps the fish is taken over Tom, and I do do hope and pray that he recovers fully and doesn't have to wait for the plane to land before he gets help. Now, my second comment is something made by the other Tom. He said at the very, very ending, when the film said "the end," well, that's supposed to be a Canadian film, and with their dual language, shouldn't have been "fin" as well as "the end." You gotta follow the rules. They're serious about the dual language stuff. All right, now back to characters, or I guess two characters, because I was off on a different tangent there for a bit. I thought they were what would be expected from both the time frame and kind of the material they had. They did not have the comedy that other movie has to help the characters along. I thought there was a lot of stereotyping there. I mean, after all, a doctor flying from one place to another obviously has to have his little doctor bag with him. So he gets in there, and of course, what was in that doctor bag, who knows how many, bottles of pills to give to all the passengers and stuff to help them make it through. And of course, that's probably why he didn't have the ability to, take their temperature or, listen to their heart or do any of the other things a normal doctor would do, is because his little bag was full of pills to pass out to the people to help their indigestion and, poisoning from the food. So, there is that. And I thought the little boy, the Striker boy, I thought he was basically there to tug on our heartstrings a little bit and to give incentive to Ted to actually make it through there, because he knew that not only would the plane crash, but his son, who he did obviously dearly love, his son might have been seriously injured or died in that plane crash, so he had to land it anyway and things. So it was good. I think the tower scenes were much better in that other film, with the press coming in and asking all kinds of useless questions, and then taking all the photographs that were posted around the thing. Of course, instead of actually taking pictures, they took pictures. So how that goes. And I guess I'll leave the rest for everyone else. This is N5IMS, back to net.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
Well, hello, Tony. I guess I should have asked for check-ins. So, anybody else out there besides Tony that wants to check in at this point?
Kilo 5. Juliet, Delta Whiskey, John and Coppell, just listening in.
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, just listening in. Back to the move.
Okay, I got Tony, NT5TM. Did you see the film, Tony?
I did. NT5TM.
Okay, I also got, I believe, K5JEW, John, just listening. And I didn't catch the last call sign. Could you come again with that one, please?
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean.
All right, I believe said you were just listening. So let's go ahead and get Tony. We'll break formation momentarily. Hopefully nobody crashes into a barn or anything. And see what Tony has to say about the plot. And then we'll pick him up later on characterization.
Thank you. I think I had more fun with Frank's comments about all the different Canadian airplanes than I did with the actual plot of the movie. I've got the Wikipedia pages pulled up for the Bristol Bullfighter and the Hispano Aviación HA1112, the Messerschmitt BF-109, the Avro Canada CF-100, and the Canada North Star. And heck, because one link leads to another, somehow I have arrived at the page for the Douglas A-1 Skyraider too, although it was not in any way a Canadian plane. So I'm going to have fun learning about all those things. I'm really, really glad that this plot was satirized in another movie, because it was just so overblown and intense that it did kind of make me want to laugh. I've suffered from both fairly serious foodborne illness and accidental chemical poisoning, and in neither case did I just suddenly lose consciousness as if I'd eaten fish. Nope, I might have wanted to suddenly lose consciousness at many points, but no, I was awake the whole time. That's just not how foodborne illness works, folks. We've all had it. It doesn't work the way it did in this movie. Yes, the doctor was annoying, except as a narrator. Oh boy, I guess I'll save my picking on that entity for characters later. The only redeeming feature in the plot of this movie was that he really couldn't land the plane. He did sort of get it in the vicinity of the ground and then had a sort of a, you could walk away from it crash, but, they're going to write that plane off. And I like that, because multi-engine aircrafts that are really, heavy and have slick aerodynamics are a lot harder to fly than a little single-engine plane, and the odds that he could get it through different aircraft configurations and bleed off all the speeds slowly that he needed to were basically zero. So that was the one thing they got right, and oh boy, the rest of it was, well, I'm sure glad it was made fun of by other people. NT5TM, thank you.
Thank you, Tony. And we now resume regularly or irregularly scheduled program with my comment about what JJ said, which is, we'll have to ask Frank whether Canadaland has had the dual language requirement long, long ago, way back when. What say you, Frank? And also your comments about the plot. No, wait, the characters from WT90.
This is Kilo Golf 5. Zombies need jobs. Well, the French language thing is, it applies to the federal government, so that all Canadians must be able to enjoy all services from the government in either official language of their choosing. It doesn't really work very well, though, however. It's hard to find people, well, maybe not so much anymore, but back in the old days when I lived there, which was like 20 plus years ago, it could be a challenge to find people in la belle province de Quebec who could speak English. And likewise, if you're in Western Canada, nobody speaks French there. So if you're a lowly government worker, you're expected to speak both languages, and if you can't, you have to go to language training. And then it's just a mess. You never really learn both, right? So you'll have a guy from Quebec, and he'll try to speak English, and when he goes to the restaurant to practice, he'll say stuff like, hey, can I have an orange glass of juice and 2 toasts side by each? So it doesn't work very well. So that's that. And in the movies, well, let me think. The movies, no, it doesn't really need to be in both languages. But if you're in Quebec, you got to have everything that's written down as public sign has to be English and French, and the French has to be bigger than the English. That's awful, by the way. Okay, well, getting back to the movie, well, I like this movie. I think it's a good movie. It's kind of a dumb movie, but there's something about it that it's easy to watch, and it's unintentionally funny, and it goes by pretty quick. And if this movie was never made, well, you would have never had airplanes. Think about that. This is a great movie, unintentionally great. So let's get to the characters. Well, Ted Stryker, a troubled man with something called PTSD, I suppose. We didn't know what that was back then. Well, they did, but they didn't call it that. And he's in a position that he has to redeem himself, and honestly, I don't think he ever did. He was pretty inept through the whole thing and panicked right till the very end, and he just got lucky. So, whatever, but he fooled his wife, so I guess they're back together, or we're back together. I like the character Whitman probably the most. He was that older guy with the booze who was, well, he had kind of this weird accent. I'll correct Tom a little bit. Whitman was the only guy who sort of had a Canadian accent, but it was kind of a mix between a Canadian accent and a Scottish accent, somewhere in between. So I think it was one of them non-Canadian type actors that was trying to sound Canadian, and he just sort of did what he could. I guess it wasn't too bad. But, you know, I liked him, and, you know, he was off from Toronto, and he was going to watch his beloved CFL, that's the Canadian Football League. His team, the Toronto Argonauts, take on the redoubtable Vancouver BC Lions with their flanking defense. Anyways, I liked him a lot. He was kind of cool. And the other guy I liked was the captain. I forget his name, but in real life his name was Crazy Legs. They even said it in the credits. And I think he was an old-time football player. But man, he was a man's man. What can you say about him? You know, I can't believe a guy like him was taken up by some fish. I just don't. But the Crazy Legs character was made fun of in SCTV, if you remember that. That was a Canadian show that got famous in the U.S. And Crazy Legs was not used very much, but he was a very, very funny character. And they had given him fake legs that were really just sewn together and stuffed with rags. And he was always holding on to his ankles and flailing his legs around while he was talking at a boardroom as an executive, so he was a funny character. So, if you look at it, in the 70s and 80s, I think it was a kind of a formula for comedy where they just made fun of 50s movies, and they did that very well. And Saturday Night Live did that a lot, and so did SCTV, so it was a nice movie of that era. Anyways, that's all I got to say about it. I used to have a pretty big Canadian accent, but I've been here 20-odd years in these here United States, and it's kind of lost its edge, and I speak a little more American now. Anyways, KG5ZNJ, back to you.
Tonight's Canadian history lesson has been brought to you by CG5ZNJ. And now it's time for Bill in 5BB to tell us about characterization. Bill from WT90.
Thank you, Michael. This is Inside BB. Excuse me. Man, these allergies are giving me difficulty. A few days ago, I was taking allergy pills, but they made me so sleepy, I stopped taking them. So, I can either fall asleep during the day, or I can get rid of my allergies, not both. Anyway, first I want to make a comment about the flight engineer. When I look, I get conflicting information from different times and things. At one point, there was an 80,000 pounds rule in the U.S. Any plane certified for 80,000 pounds or more had to have a flight engineer. And evidently, some of the DC-4s had flight engineers, and some did not. They also, many of them have navigators. If they were flying overseas, they all had to have navigators. So I find some references to a DC-4 having a crew of 6. Pilot, the second pilot or the co-pilot, navigator, flight engineer, and 2 what we would call flight attendants or pursers or the people back in the cabin. So I think it's a little hard to say, but they would not have flown with 2. There would have been a third person in there. I'm nearly sure, a flight engineer or navigator, one or the other or both. So I agree with Tom on that. They would not have been just a crew of 2. Characterization. The characterization of Striker, I think, went pretty overboard. They showed him in the cockpit of the airplane having all these flashbacks that were causing him to nearly crash. And I think that was a little extreme. I think it was very extreme, in fact. So I think if he'd been that far gone, that he would have been a blithering idiot and probably couldn't have gotten on the airplane at all. The characterization of the rest of his family, his wife and child, the son, they were okay. I liked that. I think their characterization of his wife was just about right. She was just about to leave him, but in the end, she trusted him. The guy on the ground, they pulled into, I can't remember his name. The guy that was pulled in to direct him down, he was an idiot, and they went overboard with that one, which is, I think, why they were able to use that character so effectively in airplanes. This is Inside BB. The characterization of the ground people, it seemed to me like the director went overboard, or maybe the writers, screenwriters, they went overboard trying to show the ground crew, everybody on the ground, whether it be the fire engines or the radio operators or the people directing the ground things. They did their job, and they did it 3 times. And to me, that went a bit overboard, showing everybody repeating everything and relaying it to people and then relaying it to other people. I don't know. I guess it was okay, but a little extreme. Let's see. Other things, I got a little bit lost. I guess there were 2, weren't there originally 2 stewards back in the cabin? And did one of them get sick? I got a little confused there. Seemed like at the end there was only one that was being shown, but earlier in the movie there were at least 2. The other passengers, of course, there was the guy with the bottle. I think that was a little over the board there. He was over. His characterization was over the top. And the rest of the passengers were just about right. So I guess that's it. Inside BB.
Tom! Captain Tom! Paging Captain Tom. Wake up, Tom. Come on, Tom. Somebody take Tom's temperature and see if he slept. Throw some water on him or something. It's his turn to say things. Captain Tom from WD90. I think I scared him.
know the beginning of it. Let me tell you this. You saw that thing on the news a couple of days ago where COVID-19 shut down the election thing? I was there. I was one of 9 people. So, yeah, I get it. But I'm fine, I think. So I'll know tomorrow, 6 days, 5 days. 5 days is the thing. So I feel good. We'll see what happens. So, all right. So let's talk about the characterization. I will reset. All right. There was Captain Martin Treleaven, that guy who was the commander for Ted Striker, and somehow or another he let him go ahead and crash his airplane into a barn, and somehow Ted Striker managed to make and come out of that with his family, Ellen and the kid, Ellen's kid. I think it was Billy or something. I don't know. At any rate, Captain Treleaven, I think that's Canadian. He was a real jerk through the whole thing. He's gonna crash the plane. He's terrible. He can't do anything. The naysayer, the bad guy, the one that says that squadron leader Ted Striker can't possibly do it. How the hell did he end up squadron leader if Captain Treleaven could let him? I don't understand that. That was really weird. He's constantly down-talking him through the whole thing, which really makes sense in the end, because when you're talking about that other movie, he's overheard over the radio talking about how he'll never be able to land the plane, which makes perfect sense to me, I guess. There was something I was thinking about, but I can't remember what it was now, having to do with all of this. But I'll think of it in a minute. Who knows? Let's see. Jerry Paris. Jerry Paris played Tony Decker. He was the guy with the puppet, I think. That was the guy with the puppet. He went on to, what was the show? The Dick Van Dyke Show? Yeah, Dick Van Dyke Show. He was pretty good in that, and he played good characters throughout that. There was something I was thinking of, and I can't remember what the hell. Oh, I will tell you this. It was really interesting. The DC-4, 6, there was no DC-5, 6, and 7. That went on through all of this was the flight deck, cockpit, whatever you want to call it back then, cockpit, was pretty realistic. I checked it today, and it looked good, even for a DC-4. You got to remember, they keep putting stuff in the same place because you got to put the same equipment in. But in any case, I thought it was pretty cool and convincing, the fact that Ted had to go ahead and make sure everything worked, and Ellen, his wife, was there helping along the way. That was actually kind of pretty convincing. I like the characterization there. She's there to help her husband, and Ted was kind of coming out of his shell and making it all happen. So I liked that. I thought that was pretty cool. The other characters were professional and did a good job, I think, in the end. Now, there are character flaws. There are people who act way over the top through the whole thing, which is inspiration for that other movie. very inspirational. I thought when characters just totally go off the rails and act in a weird way, in weird ways, and even the scene where you get a hold of yourself, and then suddenly there's a lineup in that other movie. But in the end, that's kind of what we all wanted to do. Come on, stop talking. 38 people, but there were no nuns. They probably could have used a nun. But in the end, I got to tell you this. I think everybody who was in that other movie with the exclamation point actually watched this movie also with an exclamation point and went, I have inspiration here. And I can go ahead and deliver over the top, even over the top that was already done, over the top to create an incredibly funny film. Now, this film is unintentionally funny from 1957. It would take, I don't know how many years, 50, 30, carry the 1, 73, 27 years to make this film work. I may be wrong on the math. Somebody will correct me, I'm sure. It was still a good film. I saw this as a kid on the old Zenith TV and saw it in black and white like it was originally designed to be done. In any case, I'll stop now. I thought the characterizations was interesting. Everybody was over the top in the end, but it kind of worked in the way that it was being done. KE5ICF.
Thank you, Captain Tom. You may pass out now. We haven't gotten you to the hospital yet. Your poisoner, Brenda, stewardess Brenda, is now up to tell everybody to duck and cover in the back of the plane. Brenda, take it away, Brenda, from WT9V.
This is WB5OZL, and some of you have not finished your fish. Would you please clean your plate so you can have dessert? Characters. Mostly it was stereotypical. The flight attendant, stewardess, was efficient and caring and hardworking and did her job, and her worthless boyfriend that wouldn't commit. And I don't know what was with this Senior Wentz's hand puppet that he had. That just, I didn't think that was funny when I was a kid. And of course, Ted Striker, war hero, damaged, although we called it shell-shocked when I was a kid. And that, it happened a lot. You saw horrible things and you couldn't function, and it was just ruining his life. His wife was ready to leave him because he couldn't settle down and take care of responsibility. So you've got a lot of types of people here. The doctor was definitely a doctor type, and the hysterical woman was one of those, and the pilots were very piloty. So I wouldn't quarrel with any of the characters here. I think they were all cast by the rules, or by the book. And the acting, I thought, was just fine. Although a lot of them were maybe a little too stereotypical and predictable, so that would probably be my only complaint about it. All right, back to Nest, WB50ZL.
Irving has come back. 5HYP. Tom in Irving. Are you out there yet? Perhaps Tom was the co-pilot and he had the fish. Oh. KG5BZWJ, Weatherford. Or near Weatherford, I'm sorry, near Weatherford. Tell us what you think about the characters. WD90.
KG5BZW, near Weatherford, yes. I just was wondering what I really could add. I really, the ventriloquist, I guess, I couldn't believe that was a real character. It just makes me wonder what people thought of children and other things back in the 50s that character was added. I don't know. I'm actually kind of lost on that one. I guess these days anybody, but I mean, the weird essence of that character, I'm still kind of blown away with, or how they wrote it to be innocent and not really, whatever. I don't know. Yeah, that's the one character I really wanted to comment on. And yeah, I mean, I've been wondering if there's anything I could really say that hasn't already been said. Because, well, okay, Striker, he acts like he already has a job when the guy says, see about it. Really? I can't think of an age in past 100 years when we'll see about it actually means yes, like he would assume it would. He apparently assumes it is, I don't know. Yeah, the politics, the better policy, I really can't say much. Yes, the captain, the on-ground captain was a jerk, and I agree on that. And yeah, I realize there was a lot of, there were some unwritten rules that are like probably written by now, but for the time about how certain things should work, and I don't know, the ladies screaming and all that jazz, I guess. Oh, I'm not coming up with anything original. I'm just being boring here. It's too bad there weren't any like pets involved. Not that would really make sense on plane. I'm not sure why I'm saying that. It's just maybe to replace some of the characters that was character. I did like him too. Stuff like that. I really can't say anything else. It's just I'd have to do an in-depth analysis of this film and probably the other film just because I need a little bit of sanity. Even though, yeah, I already could see there was a good piece of film for the time. Okay, I really do need a shot now. KG5 BCW, back to that.
N5 HYP.
Tom, you're alive. You've recovered from the fish. Amazing. Tell the other Tom what your secret is, because he's still passed out over there behind the captain's chair. N5 HYP, what do you have to say? Since we kind of missed you, or you missed us, or something on the plot, and now we're into characterizations, I'll give you 2 turns. So what do you think about the plot and characterization, sir?
Oh yeah, that's only going to my only comment, because I'm going to be heading to bed. As it was a the original, that movie was a melodrama. That was trying to portray a dramatic situation, and tried to have a main character who was familiar to a lot of people back then, of course, because of not being more than 11 years from the end of World War II. It was from a character standpoint, yeah, it was okay. They tried to develop all these little angles. I just think, overall plot-wise, it was a little bit contrived, and like our Canadian friend said, it just kind of seemed like they weren't sure where this plane was coming from. They knew where it was going, but they weren't sure where it was coming from. My wife actually liked it, though, to an extent. Thought it was an okay movie. Thought it wasn't bad. If you did see it in the 50s, it probably would have been a pretty good movie. But then we plopped in the DVD, and I watched Airplane right afterward, just to compare, just to look at all the ways that they, like I said at the beginning, plagiarized the movie to build their own. But that made it really funny, just because you just saw all these scenes and lines that were stolen and reworked from the original movie. Basically, not taking the original movie not at all as serious as the original movie makers wanted to make it. So, it's okay. Good night, all. It's been a long day for me. And this is N5 HYP, back to that.
Alrighty, Tom. Thank you very much. Let's see. NT5TM, Mr. Tony. What do you have to say about characterizations and stuff from WT90?
I think the mistake I made was watching this movie when I was too well rested, because, it's been a busy, long day, and I'm very sleepy, and I think if I watched it now, the really stark, stereotypical characters would probably have made it a better movie. I would be, awake and paying attention, and like, oh, this guy's a jerk, I hope he doesn't hurt my hero. Under the right conditions, this could have been a more interesting show. Ted Stryker was, if you're too well rested, Ted Stryker was kind of annoying. His wife kind of seemed to be the most most closest to understated and just most normal person. I appreciated that. I think she might have been a little mystified by all these overacted characters around her, but as long as she gets off the airplane, she can, walks away from the landing, she can divorce him later. His commanding officer made me think, Ted Striker's former commanding officer, who can't even go out to dinner without wearing his uniform, really made me think of something the actor Ali Ermey said with regards to Full Metal Jacket when he pointed out that, his character in that movie is a character. He was a man of considerable military experience, and he was very well aware, as he said, you can't be nasty like that all the time because no one will obey you. I don't think Ted Striker's commanding officer knew about that because, he was just nasty all the time. I can't imagine why anyone would, okay, yes, he can wreck your career or have you shot, but I can't imagine why anyone would have taken, oh, he doesn't respect me. I wouldn't have wanted that man's respect. Would have meant that I was that nasty myself. So what everyone has said is true. They're very stereotypical in most cases. But, thinking about it as I get sleepier and sleepier, maybe if I'd seen this movie under the right circumstances, which I didn't, these very stereotypical characters would have worked better for me. Thank you for listening. NT5TM.
Thank you for being here. And let's see if I just gloss over the two folks who are listening, or perhaps they had fish too. I don't know. Anybody else that would like to check in tonight to this, our wonderful movie discussion of Airplane, 0 Hour, which is Airplane without the funny bit. Please come now. Okay, fine. Just take it back to N5IMS JJ for final thoughts, since I don't know, I guess there were some special effects. There were like the water running down the windshield of a plane going 140 knots. I'm dubious about that bit, but maybe Tom can explain the aerodynamics of water flow on old windshields whenever it comes time to anyway. KJ, N5IMS, what you got for us? WT90?
Well, being this is a special effects thing, I will just make this one comment about special effects. The effects were special. Now, I'll let you define whether that's a good special or a bad special. I'd rather not say. I try and be nice when possible. Well, let me point out a few things. The crash landing just did not seem to be realistic at all. I've watched enough versions of air disasters to know that that's not how a plane like that would crash. But then again, we generally don't see the actual plane crash in the Air Disasters TV show. We just watch simulations, so who knows if they actually get it right either. So that's what that is. And I guess I'll return it back to the net with this one comment. There is no parking in the red zone. Passenger loading and unloading is only in the white zone. N5IMS, back to net.
No, there is no parking in the white zone. Passenger and loading and unloading can only be accomplished in the red zone. Sheesh, some people. 55ZNJ. Frank. Tell us something funny, Frank. Or just tell us something Canadian. From WT9V.
Oh, this is KG5ZNJ. Well, hard to be funny on the spot like that. No. Well, I don't know. I'm just talking with Tom there on chat, and if you want to see a really good Canadian movie about World War II, go see Captains of the Clouds. That's Captains of the Clouds, starring James Cagney. It was made during World War II, before the attack on Pearl Harbor, and it's a color movie, which is incredibly rare. and it was made by the same director who made Casablanca, and it takes place in Ottawa, my hometown, and CFB Rockcliffe, the air base, which I worked at when I was a young man for what's called the Royal Canadian Air Force then and called the Royal Canadian Air Force now, but when I was there it was the CFAC, which was Canadian Forces Air Command, and I worked there as a civilian when I was very young for a short time. But that's where I learned about airplanes, and I love airplanes. And anyways, go see Captains of the Clouds. I think it's on YouTube now. Great movie, really entertaining. Back to you, KG5ZNJ.
Are you telling us that Captain Tom, who's been pretending to be passed out in agony from whatever it was Brenda fed him, has actually been sneaking around sending messages behind our backs?
Only for about the last 2 minutes or so. I think I summoned him. I can't remember. KG5ZNJ.
Did you make the mistake of saying his name 3 times?
Oh, you mean like Beetlejuice? I'd think about that one. Yeah. Dr. Tom, Dr. Tom, Dr. Tom. I don't know why Dr. Tom, but it's funny. KG5ZNJ.
You should be careful what you say there, Frank. N5BB, Mr. Bill. Your turn from WD90.
You caught me with a late night snack in my mouth. This is N5BB. Well, I gave a complaint earlier about the effects during the dogfight early in the movie, in the fighter airplanes. I agree the crash looked a little contrived. I don't see why it looked to me like they were on the runway and they weren't at the end of the runway. I don't see why the landing gear collapsed. Maybe I don't know. I'm just surprised the airplane was designed such a way that just pulling on the brakes, on the emergency brake or whatever, would cause the landing gear to collapse. That seemed a little contrived to me. Or a bad design, but probably wouldn't happen that way. Let's see, other things. I guess the airplane movements during the movie were reasonable as far as moving around. I think there probably would have been more instability than they showed. During most of the movie, everybody could move around and there wasn't much, instability. But they show them going over some kind of mountains or something, and you would have thought there would have been even more instability during a lot of that flight. But whatever. Other general comments. My dad, who passed away 17 years ago, was in World War II, and he was a pilot, but he was not a fighter pilot. He was a B-17 bomber pilot. And he was actually shot down, although the airplane in front of him was the one that got the direct hit. And my dad's airplane just got severely damaged by the parts of the other exploded airplane striking. Here's the aircraft. And he actually had a controlled crash landing, you might say, but he was not injured. And after the war, after he got out of the military, Army Air Corps, he had no interest in getting in airplanes or flying them. And so I understand that part of it. I think my dad maybe only flew once or twice the rest of his life. And he chose to drive across the country rather than taking an aircraft as a passenger. But I still think that this movie was a little extreme in how it depicted Striker. I agree that his commander, whoever that came back to direct him down, was a very mean fellow, and that was kind of over the top characterization. Anyway, all in all, I think it was a reasonable movie. I think it was paced about right. I didn't feel there were parts of it that were really slow. I think that trying to say that the food poisoning was going to kill them all in a couple of hours, that was the main contrived thing as far as I was concerned. That didn't seem reasonable to me. So the rest of the plot seemed
Elvis has left the building.
And I can imagine something like that happening. I mean, it could happen. And I don't have any clue whether after that movie came out, if the airline decided to take any special, efforts to make sure that the pilot and co-pilot ate completely different meals. That's kind of an interesting thought. Not a bad idea. That's all I've got in 5BB.
W5FC.
Tom, wake up! Your turn. W290.
It's midnight. It's the bewitching hour, and they have to reset occasionally because the repeater will tell you you're terrible. Special effects, yeah, I agree with everybody as far as, whatever you're watching. Lots of stock footage. What I thought was interesting was when the plane landed, an entirely fake thing with the very simple model just like, dropping on top of the, when the toothpicks landing gear collapsed, the plane plopped down very, very quickly. In the process of doing that, it was obvious that it was a model on top of a bad model with two models sitting there doing things. So the whole thing up to that point was relatively realistic with real footage from a DC-6 or 4 or something. Not a 5, maybe a 7, who knows. At any rate, the airplane kept changing in size, and in the end, the whole thing is kind of blown apart by the very, very fake special effects at the end. Everything else worked. Inside the cockpit, flight deck, whatever you want to call it, it had DC 4, 6, 7 look to it. That all worked extremely well, I thought, in the end. So I was cool with that. They even, and I checked it, I mentioned this earlier, they checked all of the overhead components, the radio, all of that, the memory sub. The landing gear and all of that seemed to be correct, so they had a technical expert that seemed to know what they were talking about. I could be wrong, but, overall I thought that they did a pretty good job with all of that. So, the film from a technical aspect, except at the very end, seemed to work really well, and that's what threw it out, and it's probably lost a star in the ratings, simply because the ending really didn't look very convincing, let's face it. But everything else about it seemed to be pretty good from a technical aspect. The The acting was over the top. The story was over the top. But that's what made it work so well for Airplane. Can I say that? Airplane. Later on. So I'm okay with it. That's it for me. KE5I6.
It's nice to know that now that we're, on the ground with the perfect... how many points are on the bottom of the plane? Landing, that you're feeling better. Are you in the hospital? Do you have, tubes running out of your arms and such? Will you ever forgive Brenda for poisoning you? And speaking of Brenda, think about the special effects from WT9V.
This is WB50ZL. I wish you quit telling people that I poison people, because I don't do that. I'm a nice person. Special effects, they're okay. I don't have real strong feelings either way. They weren't particularly special, but they weren't really bad either. It was believable. You believed you're on a plane. You believed you were on a plane. But that last landing was pretty bad. I think he would have done better at landing it, and they would have talked him in better other than, okay, land now. They would have given him a lot more detailed instructions about his airspeed and his attitude. Excuse me. A lot of stock footage. How hard can you mess that up? You almost can't talk much about special effects. It's all stock, so, there you go. All right, it's late. I want to go to bed. This is WB50ZL.
All right, Brenda, go tuck yourself in, and we'll talk about you behind your back. Let's see. Other Tom in Irving said he was done. So I guess that brings us around to Jay, G5BGW, the weather person. Come on, Jay. What's he got? WT90.
This is KG5BGW. I could echo what I just said. I still believe there was one brief shot. I don't know, in the PTSD shot, that the aircraft dynamics didn't quite feel right, and it seemed like the sparks were, or the fire/sparks, it still looked like fire and sparks. And it seemed that it was kind of depicting a flat spin, but it wasn't really flat. The way the aircraft was falling was definitely it was stalled at the very least. Or at least it depicts a stalled aircraft that the wind is not blowing over the wings for sure. Wasn't really, but still, it's like, how the heck did they even get into that point? It wasn't really, and like I said, there was like, it really looked like sparks. But, so I'm not entirely for sure, not certain that the PTSD episodes were fully from, old footage. I think there was that one, at least one shot, if not, maybe one more, but I can't remember it right now. I'd have to look at it again. Yes, of course, the ending just did not make sense, and also looks like models. it'd be nice if they were consistent, though. I mean, they had the wheels braking. Well, either the damn thing bounced too hard or it didn't. But when he's going down to the runway, he's like going too fast. Think the brakes can't work and blah blah blah. Unless the wheels locked up. The idea is that the wheels locked up, and that's what causes the breakage or something. I'm guessing that's what they said. I'm guessing that's what they were going for, some sort of weird mechanical failure causing that domino effect. I'm no expert on that, so I just kind of going with limited information I do know about crashes and whatnot. That my
W5.
My dad was actually. Hold on, let me reset before I get too far. Okay, because we got that timer and all that. My dad was a private pilot and actual aircraft engineer, so whenever there were crashes, he always kind of liked to read about them, and then I was like, well, that was, what failed? Is that a failure I need to know about, basically? Failure mode. So I picked a little bit of that, but I don't know. So, there's a lot to that kind of stuff, Although, I'm getting off cabinet. What music was there? I don't remember much of any music, which is kind of interesting because I don't know about for these films. I guess if there was music, it worked pretty well. I guess maybe if they situated dramatic moments and whatnot, I guess, maybe, I don't know. Now I'm totally lost on that. So, that was okay. The inside of the aircraft, yeah, that was, it did look like the inside of the aircraft. How much was, copied from, and I'm sure they for all of the space the film needs to film, I'm sure a lot of it was rebuilt from aircraft or whatever, but other than that, there's the control room, which would be interesting to comment on if I knew what the control room, I'm calling it the control room, that's not the tower. And the tower itself, I don't know. I'm sure you can break it down, but I certainly don't have the knowledge of what airports look like at that age. But anyway, I'll hand it back to control. Get your buddies to do it.
Hey, thank you, Jake. And Tony. Bring us home, Tony. See if you can land this thing from WT-90.
Sure I could make a good landing even in a parachute. Airplane? I can't fly an airplane. Maybe it was N5BB. I'm not sure who first said that, but the special effect I found most amusing was when Mr. Striker is first in the cockpit of the airplane, and so they've got all the little myriad of gauges, which, are pretty intimidating. They're all just twitching and turning, and like the engine RPMs are varying from 500 to 2,000 back and forth in the space of a couple seconds, and the airspeed is going up and down, and they're all just constantly oscillating back and forth. And I know it's just meant to look intimidating, but the result, as I want to laugh because they don't make any sense even to me, and I don't know what they mean. Well, I guess obviously in some cases I did. I mean, we know what speed and altitude and RPMs do. Other than that, I really appreciated everyone else's comments. I've enjoyed listening, and thank you for taking my late check-in, MT5TM.
Oh, it was my pleasure. And, you know, we can look at any movie, almost any movie anyway, and Hollywood does not typically care about getting things right. Anybody that knows anything about computers cringes every time a computer is on the screen in a Hollywood movie, because they just do something that somebody that is totally ignorant of computers thinks looks good. And, you know, the same thing is applicable with just about anything else. So, you know, we can sit here and look at any movie and nitpick things that they get wrong. Because that's easy, you know. You're sitting there and saying, hey, they actually got this technical thing correct. That actually happens a lot less. Like Unix in Jurassic Park, that was actually a real thing. I've actually seen the interface that they used. It was uncommon, but it was a thing. But, you know, medical stuff is wrong. Pretty much everything, you know. So, you know, I looked at all these gauges that were just going, and I'm like, yeah, Hollywood, whatever. Even back then, whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of got to address one of the comments that Jay made, I believe. I think it was the brakes that were actually sparking, because it was, or maybe the wheels had locked up at that point. But you know, sometimes you get interesting effects from brakes that are overheated. That was kind of what I thought was happening. And I believe that the airplane skidded sideways, and that was when the gear collapsed. But once again, I might be wrong. And speaking of airplanes and gear, David, who never bothers to check in on this net, although he watches the movies, posted a link. Maybe Tom has it, that he can put it somewhere that people can get to it, of people flying 777s right into the ground, and they bounce and flop back and forth and still come out better than that plane did in this movie. Anyway, I'm about done. I think we're all done. Anybody else have any further comments at this point? Please come down.
Kilo 5, Juliet, Delta Whiskey.
November 5, India Mike Sierra.
I'm modestly surprised. I thought everybody would have already run away by now. John, KD5JDW, what you got?
I thought only, Tony, Lucretia, Brenda, and, well, no, never mind. Yeah, we're still up. Please remind me, I came in about 20 minutes after the net started, and I missed the name of the movie. I don't know if I've seen this thing or not. It doesn't sound familiar, but just please remind me of the name. Usually once you said it in the beginning, nobody ever says it again, because most of y'all know what you're talking about. K5JDW.
Well, yeah, I was kind of remiss, and I frequently forget to do that, but the actual movie that we were talking about tonight was 0 Hour from, I believe, 1957. Yes, that's what it says on the display there. Which was, I believe, if I remember correctly, the people that did Airplane bought the rights to 0 Hour and basically remade that movie almost exactly, except they added in funny stuff. So if you take Airplane and remove all the funny parts, you have 0 Hour, which is another friend of mine today said, what was it, 5 minutes long? Just like the opening and ending credits? I mean, I don't understand.
W5FT.
So does that answer your question, sir?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, Tom, General, had actually sent it to me. I couldn't get it to open. Kept taking me to some site, but Schuessler earlier said it was I think he said it was a melodrama, and I went, Then I thought, of course, this was probably back in the day where flying was just kind of new to the general public, and it was one of those things where I guess anything in a plane was, especially when it, might mean your life, is, melodramatic. Nothing can happen, of course. So that was, I'm guessing that was their aim back then. I guess it's not snakes on a plane or anything, but probably back then it was probably was a melodrama. Anyway, that's all. I was just trying to I could not remember the name of it. I don't know if I've actually seen it or not, so I'll probably check it out later. Thank you, sir. K5JDW.
All right. Well, I mean, the drama part was that Lucretia poisoned everybody. I mean, she looked innocent. She pretends to be innocent, here, but we all know better. In 5 IMS, JJ, what you got?
I just wanted to say, good luck. We're all counting on you. It's been 5 IMS.
Oh, y'all are in trouble if you're counting on me. All right. Anybody else out there have any other comments? Perhaps Brenda wanting to defend her honor once again. Well, maybe she went to bed. All right. Good night, all. It's been fun. I had fun. I had a good time this one. WT9V. Y'all have a good weekend.
Hey, you forgot next week's movie.
That's your job, because you didn't tell me what it is.
Go sit over in the corner in the engineer's position, which was completely left vacant through the entire film.
I kind of think I liked you better when you were passed out on the floor.
Alright, everybody listen up. Next week's movie is a made-for-TV ABC Movie of the Week that somehow or another I found called Stowaway to the Moon from 1975. It's got actual Apollo hardware in it, which doesn't say much because in 1975 most of it had been thrown in a junkyard somewhere. Stowaway to the Moon next week. A 1975 film. And then after that comes the Brain Eaters from 1954. We need something for Halloween night. But that's 2 weeks away. That's it for me. Oh, and if you would like to know where you can find information on the movies, send something to Kilo Echo 5 India Charlie X-Ray KE5 ICX yahoo.com. Say you're part of the Astro movie group, and I will send you the info. You get extra info in the email. Otherwise, go to Afterglow Movie, 2 words, Afterglow Movie, and sign up there, and you'll get all the cool stuff. Back to net control. Of course, you already went to bed. This is KE5ICX, clear.
I went to bed several hours ago. You're just hallucinating everything you think I've said tonight. And I hope you don't die tomorrow, Tom.
Oh, me too. I'm feeling fine. I check my temperature twice a day. I'm good.
Is it above room temperature?
depends on what room temperature is.
That's a very good point. And I saw something the other day about, somebody invented, the latest creation was room temperature superconductors that will superconduct below 59 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, that's a nice cold room. And then I saw the asterisk and down at the bottom it says, under 2.5 million atmospheres of pressure. I'm like, well, yeah, probably not going to find that in most rooms I've seen.
It's all relative, and it all depends on the relatives, especially at Thanksgiving.
That was something else that came up during the little chat that I was having earlier this evening with the person I was trying to convince that his 0 hour was more than 5 minutes long, where he said that he read somewhere that supermarkets were planning to stock smaller turkeys this year because they figure there will be many fewer large family gatherings, at least hopefully.
Can we serve fish for Thanksgiving? Or have I missed?
No!
Only if you're foolish enough to invite Brenda over.
It might just be so there are less hot oil fires in Texas so they don't overcrowd the ERs. K5 JDW.
Oh, come on. Everybody knows that if you're going to, fry a turkey like that, you should get out your step ladder or your ladder and build a gantry to lower the thing in from 20 feet away so you don't get, roasted along with it. Nothing? Everybody writing down notes? What?
It reminded me of a thing I used to do with a friend of mine in high school. He worked at a fried chicken place, and his job was to fry the chicken up in those big pressurized deep fat fryers. And of course the oil was still quite hot. It just hadn't been pressurized yet, but they would deep fry, or they would powder or flour up the chicken and get it all nicely battered and stuff, have a good crunch, and then we would play basketball and just kind of toss the chicken pieces into it from about 4 foot away.
It sounds like it ought to be messy.
It was, but he wasn't the third shift who had to clean up the kitchen, so he didn't mind. 695 IMS 73.
Must have been Kentucky Fried Chicken since he invented that. K5 JDW.
So what you're saying is that, everything wrong with the chicken industry is teenagers.
Well, not everything, but